So what do you think about when you consider that when you consider that the reason many Jews were exterminated in Germany were that they were considered
not white.
Not white.
Right.
How does that fit in your context of, being a quote-unquote white person in this culture or in this part of the world?
Well, I don't consider myself a white person because of that.
You're not a white person?
I mean, I am, right? But I'm not.
You said you are.
Yeah, I am. I look white.
Okay, but you're not a white person.
Not to a lot of people. No.
To what people? What group of people?
Racists, I would think. Anti-Semitic people.
But to black people, the average.
Yeah, then I'm white.
Black person.
Sure.
You're white.
Yeah, I think so.
And so then you would accept the premise that you could be a white supremacist.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Until proven otherwise, right?
Until proven otherwise.
Right.
How are you going to prove otherwise?
I'm not.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
yeah.
Either you are or you're not.
Right.
And the proof too. The proof is predicated upon each individual person who perceives that you might be a racist.
Mm-hmm.
So once you prove it to Ed, for instance,
so that's sort of deal.
Yeah, and not. I guess. What are you saying about? You're not. I mean, that's not true. But you don't feel a need to do that. Is that correct?
I don't feel a need to prove that I'm not.
Yeah.
No, actually, I don't feel a need to prove one way or the other. And I know that in the context of the situation that I was talking about before, I didn't know what to do at first. And once I decided to prove that I was Jewish and not white, it ended the relationship that I had with those guys. And I was okay with it. I mean, okay with ending the relationship. But,
You have brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
What did your parents tell you about racism? Do they give you any instruction growing up?
Oh yeah. We were taught that everybody was the same. But I grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty much all white. All white. Jewish and Italian.
Can I just sort of get an idea of, I guess I've met Josh before, like how you guys are here. What's your name again?
I'm John.
John, okay. And you know Josh?
I know John from the Crest Welding Institute.
Okay.
And I met Ed there too. And he also used to live where my parents lived. And used to.
Oh, wow.
So that's a point for me there.
Are you recording this?
Just for reference purposes. Is that all right?
It's fine with me. I was just curious.
I don't have South accent, sorry.
Oh, you don't have that yet? Oh.
Actually, funny part, sometimes people thinking that I'm joking, that I'm telling that I'm from Georgia. I never heard about it. There's another Georgia, too.
You're from the other Georgia.
I'm from original one.
Right.
Are there a lot of caves there?
Yes. You know what? We have kind of a cave. You heard about it probably. We have a cave town, a lot of them. Yes, I even have a picture somewhere from my childhood pictures. It's a city inside of the mountain. They were hiding from Turks when they were getting in because they were killing all Christians and who will not take Muslims. And they were hiding in a mountain. And it wasn't revealed until, I think, 18th century.
Yes.
Who was hiding?
Georgia, from the Turks that were coming from south. So usually we're all the time under Turks, in and out. And they were hiding in the mountains, and during the earthquake, half of the mountains fell. And then they found out that we have a couple of cities in the mountains. It's beautiful, starting like you're entering, there is a big river, mountain river, and you'll see the mountains, they're kind of a cut of like knife-cutting mountains, and you see completely like cells, streets inside of the mountain. They have like entering, and there is a horses standing where to hide stables inside of the mountain. You go in, they have a pharmacy, big library, they have streets inside, entrance, they have their own water inside. They have very unique church there with a very unique frescoes that stay not touched. Beautiful place, unbelievable, and they found a lot of books and historical documents there. And we have a couple of them like that. It's kind of more mountains country, but it's kind of everything together. It's a mountain and a sea. It starts with the Alps and finishing with the subtropics, so mixed together. They're beautiful.
So are there black people in Georgia?
I told you last time we don't have black people. The first time I saw a black person, I was in a high school, and we went to I was graduating high school and was ready to go to university, and we went to St. Petersburg, and I was walking on the street, and suddenly I saw the black person. Actually, you will be surprised, we don't have Afro-American expression. We call black person negro, and we're not considering this as an assault. It's just the word that we're using for
What about
negro.
Cherokee?
What?
Cherokee?
Why are you mixing all each other? I will tell you when I first time saw a black person, you jumping ahead.
But didn't you say last time that
we don't call it
in
church.
Russia you were called a black person?
They call it me black person, but we don't call Afro-American.
Did they call you nigger?
No, because
What did they call you?
They call it me chorna. Chorna means, they call it me black person.
What does cherokee mean?
Black.
And nigger means black?
Negro means that you are from Negroid race. Like, I am Caucasian.
Yes.
I'm Caucasian. You are Negroid.
When you in Russia,
Yeah.
right? that is the term, nigger.
Yeah, this is a word,
And
but it's not.
everyone uses it.
No, it's not a salting word. It's just a
Everyone
word.
uses
But
it.
it doesn't
Yeah.
mean color?
No.
It doesn't mean color.
No.
But the word cherokee means
Chorna
color.
means color. Yeah.
Is the word nigger a Russian word?
Yes.
It is Russian word.
Yes, it's a Russian
Oh,
word.
okay.
It's just a word for, actually, when I came here and I called nigger, and my friend from Germany, shh, don't say that. I say, why? I say, I didn't say, no, you're assaulting people. I say, I'm not assaulting people. It's the way we're calling them. Don't say that you will get in trouble, that can hurt you if you will say, you have to call it Afro-American.
What would they call me if I was walking? Cherokee or nigger?
No, nigger.
But they would call you Cherokee.
Yeah.
And Cherokee means black.
Yeah.
Why would they call you a color when I have more color than you?
Because, they call it me like assault.
They call you insult?
Yes, they will call me Chernobyl because it's insult. And it's not a how to say it, it's more nationality, because right now in Moscow there is a tendency who comes from Caucasus Mountains. It's Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia, and they have very big problem in Russia, and it's a joke. When you are in Russia, you're not lucky if you are brunette. They can stop you in the street and ask for a passport. You can assault. You can be beaten for being Georgian, Armenian, or not Russian.
But when they say...
Did you say brunette?
Yes. There is this kind of joke. If you're not blonde, you're brunette, you are black.
So when they use the term black to describe you, they are talking about the color of your hair?
No, it's a nationality because most of the person who coming from Caucasus Mountains, they are brunettes, and the skin is not white. It's a little bit with a yellowish color.
So they have some color.
Well, I have color. So
people that are lighter than you call you Chernik?
You know what? They have a distinguished noses and accent when they speak in Russian. I don't have an accent, even though I speak Russian at home and my mom is Russian.
When they drive by and they see you,
yes, they can.
They call you Chernik?
Not everyone calls you, assaults you in the street.
But you said it's an insult, right?
Yes, it is.
Why do they insult you?
Because they're not supposed to tell me that.
No, why? Do you do something to make them call you that?
Because I'm not from Russia. It's like the same when you're walking on another person's street and there's gangs and another gang for a street, and they will assault you because you're not on their territory. It's the same way.
How do they know that you're not?
How do they know that you are Afro-American?
White people?
Exactly. They know.
How do you know I'm Afro-American?
I look at you.
Exactly.
Okay, so
they
in
look
Russia,
at me.
people look at you and they go, you're black.
Well, they will say you are from they call region Zakavkazia, that you are not from Russia.
Do they call you Chernik? And would they insult you?
If they are not intelligent people and mean, they may.
But they see something that causes them to call you that, Chernik.
Well, not everyone calls me. Don't take it.
I know. It's the people that want to insult you.
Yes.
Those people.
Do they know it just from
Why do they
looking at you,
Yes.
or is it something that
When
you
you
tell them about?
when you started to talk, like you said, you don't have a Southern accent. When I talk in Russian,
I'm not talking about speech. They just drive by in a car and see you.
Yeah.
Because I've been walking down the street in a car, drive by, and some white person yell nigger.
But they
Now,
wanted to assault you, then assaulted you because you look
I'm
like.
saying, what do they see in you?
My features and my color. By the way, you can ask Jamie now when he goes to Russian church. He can distinguish Russian and Georgian with each other.
Hey,
right?
Jamie.
Yeah.
You're late.
I'm totally late. I apologize. I'm Jamie.
Jamie? Ed?
Ed, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Hey, Jamie, I'm John. You met
Hey,
me
John.
before.
Yeah, we met at the
At the Wilson
at the Wilson Institute. Thank you guys for coming. I'm going to change. I'll be right down.
You put coming too.
So I was trying to get an understanding.
Thank you.
If she was walking down the street, would she get called a Chernik?
Yeah.
How about him?
No.
Why?
Features of the face. You know what? Ask Jimmy. I'm telling you, when you will start to be close to the Russian community and you will see the people, you will can distinguish people from who coming from Asian Republic with a feature of the you know what, you're not familiar with that and you probably don't pay attention
I'm more
with that.
familiar than you think. I'm just trying to get an understanding of how close do people watch to see whether or not to call you Chernik. The term means black.
Yeah.
What feature are they associating with black? The color of your hair?
You know what? I have a pictures of Georgian girls who are sitting in front of the church here. And I'll show you that features that I'm talking. You can distinguish them by how they look.
Is it usually dark hair though?
Not only, you know that eyes and noses and a little bit skin, you're a little bit white for a Georgian, like a little bit darker skin, and yes, by feature of your face.
So, this feature is associated with black people?
Maybe because we are darker than Russians, sir.
So it has something to do with color, huh?
Yes. But you know what? It's kind of when, in reality, it's distinguished by color, but it's not the color that they're using. They're using nationality against you. And the color is one of distinguished that they pick it up. It's not, if I was yellow, they will call me yellow. I am not from Russia, and I will have a yellow skin. They will use this against me, and they call me yellow. It's just come up that we are.
What is the word for yellow? That when they ride by in the car, they yell out the window. What do they say?
That will be zolty.
Zolty?
Yeah.
So when they drive by, and if you're Chinese, they go zolty.
Or if you're from Kazakhstan or...
Oh, they don't call, they don't have that to the Kazakhstan. They have problem with, you know why they have it? Because Georgians are very business-oriented, and they're taking a lot of... the power is, Georgia is very rich with vegetables, fruits, and all this stuff, and they bringing it to Russia, and they take all markets. They kind of... they took like kind of monopoly, and they keeping it. In a way, it's like mafia. But you know what? When you're picking one, you're taking everything. And most of them, they kind of the mafia, but they sell the product. They're bringing product from Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Russia. Well, Georgia, because we have these fruits, vegetables, and greens, and Russia doesn't. And with that, they're getting money. And they're getting rich. And they were considering Georgia and Armenia and Azerbaijan one of the richest republics in former Soviet Union, during the former Soviet Union. And that, people don't like when somebody is rich and somebody getting money on their territory. And that was one reason why when it started. This was a push when it started. And then it was like a wave on nationalism, and they're starting to kick Georgians and Armenians out of Russia, and they're starting to put police over to ask their passport and visa, and they're deporting everyone. And then they have a special groups, they call it nationalism, and they look like Nazis. They have shave their heads, and they screaming they are blue blood, Russian blue blood, and everyone who is Jewish or not the same, or Georgian or Armenian or black, they're calling us black, they're supposed to get out of the country.
Okay, we can discuss this later, Jamie.
Great.
Why don't you go ahead and start your meeting, since this is your group you set up.
Are we live with anybody, or are you just recording? Or
yeah. Just for reference purposes. It's not on the internet.
Okay, cool. The way that Ron and Melissa and I all know each other is from this personal development class that we took together, and one of the concepts in this class that we all know each other from is that whenever you have a loss of power or freedom or full self-expression, that there's some kind of thing that you're lying to yourself about. Like you're being inauthentic in some way, or there's something in a blind spot where you're like kind of unable to get at stuff. So I've been really not very powerful around this group for a while, and one of the ways it shows up is me being really late for this thing that I invited people up to my own house, and I'm pretty embarrassed about that. I have this relatively new job, and one of the things that's been really exciting about the job for me is I have this commitment to be accountable for the end of racism by the year 2020. And it's never felt very, always felt pretty helpless in the face of that commitment. And this job, actually, I get this opportunity to make a difference in that regard. Yeah.
Who made the time limit?
Me.
Is that arbitrary, or is there some significance to that?
It was pretty arbitrary. It sounded good, sounded like 2020 vision. It was the year 1999, so it was 20 years from the next New Year's. So it seemed like it was a time within my lifetime, within the lifetime of most people I was talking to about it.
Was this out of the first group that you started, or before that?
It was before that. It was what had me start that group. So it's I'd love to talk more about what that's all about. But what I wanted to sort of say was I started I work at the DC government, and I started actually talking to people at work for the first time about this commitment that I've got, and I'm being given projects that make a big difference in regards to getting to work on digital divide issues. I'm getting to work on education issues in e-government, and so I invited somebody to come here tonight, and then I chickened out. I didn't want to have him come.
You invited someone to come here tonight?
Yeah, I invited somebody from work, and I just started avoiding it, and then I didn't see any email traffic about it, so I sort of hoped that everybody forgot.
Why?
Why? Actually, Nino? Because it's got something to do with Nino. I actually want to come clean with her about it.
You set up this meeting.
Yeah.
In the group, and you don't want to do it anymore?
No. I do want to do. No, I do want to do it.
Or on a different day? Was this not a good day?
No, it's not that. I very often find myself in in terms of anything around this conversation of ending racism, find myself wanting to withdraw from it, often wanting to run away from it, and
from
being
this project, or lessons experienced in your life?
No, mainly consistently around this project. I find it frightening to struggle with the issues. I find it hard to talk about my life in front of strangers. And in front of my friends, I find it hard. So
why did you start the group then? Wasn't there some need you thought?
Yeah, a tremendous need. Because I think the world is unjust, and I think that people like me are going to have to start dealing with our fears about that if the world's going to get anywhere.
What do other white people say when you tell them that you've started this group, and what kind of response do you get from white people?
I get 2 or 3 kinds of responses. I get a response.
Can I just interrupt that for a second, because you had asked why, and you didn't finish saying why.
Why what?
Why do you start it? And I think it has to do with the inauthenticity you were talking about. Why would you start it and then be late or whatever, or not want to do it?
He admitted that he recognized that there was a problem, and he said something about injustice. But he also said that he doesn't like dealing with the issue.
Yeah, I don't find
so those two things kind of contradict. They fight each other.
I take it on that whenever I'm late to something like this, or whenever I say I'm going to do something, then I don't do it. That's part of what's at play in racism. That's part of the dynamic that is at play in the world.
You want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Want to ignore it.
Yeah.
Don't want to deal with what?
Well, I don't want to deal with that I said I would do something about it. And I don't want to deal with that I'm irresponsible about that.
Do something about what?
Do something about... Well, when I say ending racism, I mean something really specific. It's not necessarily what everybody means.
You gave yourself a deadline.
I gave myself a deadline. And I gave myself No
black people do that.
gave myself a deadline, and I said, I made it very specific. I said, okay, the way I see, I do a lot of analysis in my work about like how you can measure different things, and so I tried to get racism down to the simplest measure I possibly could. Like, if you were just going to measure one thing, what could you measure that would let you know if racism was over? And so it's a, I actually think racism is a very complicated, there's a lot of different things that play into the final measurement, but what I say, how we'll know that racism has been dealt with in America is if you can go into a room full of newly birthed people and not be able to make money betting on what will happen to them based on the color of their skin. Because right now, if you went into a hospital in D.C. and you went to the new baby room and you looked around, you could actually really have a pretty good idea of who would live and who would die based on whether they're, the light bounces off their skin at my frequency or your frequency. Because actually, at every age, white people die at twice the rate of white people.
You said something about being able to measure whether or not racism is over.
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
That should be over everywhere.
Well,
in having racism.
Yeah.
And when I refer to racism, I refer to racism as being the equivalent to white supremacy.
Yeah.
Having racism, white supremacy in anywhere in the universe is the equivalent to being able to have a corner of a swimming pool that you could urinate in.
No, I hear you, and that may be true, and it may be so, because if I'm going to be accountable, if you're right about that, then in order to have my promise be true that I'm going to be accountable for ending racism by 2020, if you're right, I have to end it in the whole world, right? And I'm I said I'd be accountable for it, so I'm willing to be accountable for that if you're right about that. Now
in the whole universe.
And in the whole universe. Yeah. Absolutely. And that scares me because I'm I don't know if I can handle that in 20 years. But my operating theory right now is that the way the phenomenon works is more like an epidemic. It's more like SARS in China. So you're watching, if you could get the anti-racism conversation to start taking hold in people, that it would spread locally first. So I'm very focused on D.C. right now, and I figure if we could tip D.C., then we could tip the East Coast.
So what do white people say to you when you tell them what you're trying to do? What kind of response do you get? Do they want to join your group?
Most people politely nod and change the subject.
White people.
White people. Yeah. Some people, very few people, and it's been a long time, but some people want to argue about whether it's possible or not. A lot of people want to have a conversation about whether it's a stupid idea to be wasting your time because they think it's impossible. Right. You get a lot of that it's impossible. Some people want to come. And a lot of people want to have a conversation about what their own experience of it and how they have some pain they want to talk about or whatever.
Do the people that say it's impossible, do they feel that racism in the form of white supremacy is not a problem? And so why are you even dealing with the issue?
I think everybody, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say it's not a problem. I've heard people say that it's exaggerated, it's not as big a problem, people make such a big deal about it, and they shouldn't make such a big deal about it. But I don't know that I've ever had anybody say it's not, I've had people go, why would you want to think about that? That must be very unpleasant to go to a group and talk about these things.
So basically they're saying it's not a big enough problem for them to...
or it's.
I mean, if black people were going out and shooting white people like that John Allen Muhammad dude, if he only shot white people,
Yeah.
would they feel that there's a need to talk to him? If there are like 3 or 4 of them kind of John Allen Muhammad's running around?
Probably need more than that.
You need more than that.
I would think so.
Okay. I'm just saying, at some point,
Yeah.
think about it. At some point, that same white person who says it's not really a big deal would have to admit that it's a big deal, right?
The funny part is I don't think that if there were a lot of if
I'm
if
just
there was
using that as an example.
Yeah, no, but I mean I'm trying to like if I have my own opinion about what would happen if that happened. My experience with a white.
It could be something more subtle. Say every time, walking down the street, when a black person sees a white person, they just spit.
That might be more effective.
So it could be something like that.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, would these same white people who say it's not a problem, I mean, at some point, if it's a problem, what would their response be to you setting up your meeting to solve it? Would they say that you're not doing it right?
I don't know.
My guess is, this is my guess,
Yeah.
because I have no idea, is that they're not personally affected by it, so it just doesn't really affect them. That'd be my guess.
Are we talking about white people or non-white
No, I'm talking about white people. When
I
he
just
goes
wanted to
to
make sure that we were all on the same page.
I understood that. I was talking about white people.
I was talking about white people.
Okay.
Yeah, because it probably doesn't, affect them in their everyday life. My guess is that it just, they don't care. Not that they don't care. It just doesn't, move them to do anything.
I mean, it's interesting. I've moved.
Take action.
Apathy, basically.
Or isolation, or
apathy, just they're not. They're not affected by it. So it's if you're not affected by it, it's almost like it's back there and you can't see it.
And there's some.
So it's not in their.
There's some degree
That's
where.
my guess.
There's some degree where most well-educated white people, for some sense, have this. If you talk to them long enough, they have this sense that they're benefiting somehow from things being bad for black people.
How? What are the mechanics of that?
I don't know that they understand it. It's actually more of an experience, like a guilt. I live in the suburbs and I'm safe.
No, I think you misunderstood my question.
Yeah.
What are the mechanics of a white person benefiting from non-white people being harmed?
Well, here's the. I don't know that I.
Well, wait a second. I think I can answer that.
Okay.
That's because
Are you a white person?
whatever I am. I don't know. But I can.
I need to say something. I don't I'm really. I guess I'm not quite sure what your distinctions are with white person, non-white person, white supremacy. I'm very
These guys haven't been to the Cross-Welsing Institute, so I come to a couple of lectures, so I'm sort of familiar with where you guys are coming from.
Right.
Could you?
I guess I'm just feeling left out.
Could you run through it really?
I'll give you the quick example.
That's the reason I have to ask.
Right.
Okay.
I'll give you the quick example. In a system based on race, where race is supreme, knowing who is a white person and who isn't is very important. It's like being a Jew in Nazi Germany and walk around and not knowing who's a member of the Nazi Party and who is, because somebody may say, "Hey, come hide in here,"
And they're going to kill you.
Yeah,
right.
So it's very important. And the other thing is, the reason why it's important for me to ask is because when I ask a question about white people, I want to be talking to a white person. It's like when I ask a question to, when I want to know about doctors, I want to talk to a doctor.
Exactly. That's the
And the doctor should be able to tell
And I get that.
It's because if you're going to answer the question from the perspective of a white
But it wasn't from the perspective. It was basically there was a.
You have to have a distinction.
Yeah, and
I guess my question is, do you have to have a distinction? Can't we just all, is it possible? I don't even know where to say this. Is it possible that we're just people?
Good.
I guess that's sort of where I come, coming to this group, that's really where I come from. I guess I'm missing out some.
So I'm gonna
the distinction.
Let me just explain the distinction.
Tara, do you know what the distinction is that they're talking about?
Yeah, because I read
the website.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so am I answering it from one perspective or the other? All right, I'll say that I'm answering it from the perspective of a white person, but I think it might be the same as what?
Let me just interrupt you, because it's really interesting.
As a white supremacist, right?
Do you want to answer it as a white supremacist?
That's too confusing. Because the way that I ask the question, it has to be answered by a white person. If you're not a white person, you're not qualified to answer the question. It's very simple. Very simple. So.
There's three in the.
Are you a white?
Wait a minute. Everyone say if they're.
Distinctions are.
Let me just run through that.
That's why you're not a white person.
Right.
Are you a white person, James?
Yes.
Okay, then you're qualified to answer the question.
All right.
And what's that distinction mean? Like the color of your skin?
All right. At least from the lectures I heard,
Okay.
You're either non-white, white, or white supremacist.
Okay. And what are this?
So, well, that's actually part of the interesting part of this conversation is like then how do you there's no I don't know it's basically declare is my part. Like if I declare I'm a white person, I'm a white person. Is that
Could you be
fair?
white?
If white people would let me. See that?
Yes.
My definition of white is
That's right.
you have to be classified as white by other people who classify themselves as white. It's like being in a union. You know, the union members eat at the union lunch table.
But it's more profound than that because the union members are much more likely to survive to be 20 than the non-union members. I mean, it's a high-stake game.
But anybody can't be in the union.
And
I've been trying.
Well, let James tell us what a white person is, since he says that he is one.
Okay.
See, but the funny part is, I do think it's slippery. I mean, the funny part is, like, 1 generation ago, 2 generations ago, I was considered black. I'm Irish.
Hold on, now you're confusing me.
No, it's a very...
I'm very easily confused.
Okay.
So what you're telling me right now is that someone can become white?
Irish people in America, by the white supremacist literature, used to be black, and now they're white. I just learned that.
Okay, so what you're telling me is someone can become white.
That is my historical understanding of it.
Interesting.
But my experience was that I was born white. Because, like, by the time I was born, I've always been treated as white. I've always had white privilege. I've always been checked at birth. That's what they...
So I think Ron alluded to that earlier as well, that at one point he was not white. Did I misunderstand you in saying that?
No, I think that Jews are still Jews, right? So I'm non-white. Actually, I'm a special class, according to right? According to
special class.
Isn't there a special class?
You are special.
Yeah.
Of course it would be a special.
I read it somewhere.
Class right now.
Yeah, right. I feel like it. So no, but all right. So I'm non-white to white supremacists, but I'm going to be white to almost everybody else.
Who runs the show?
The white supremacists.
Okay. So, essentially, you're non-white.
Right.
Okay.
Which is what I said before.
Okay.
But I think the question you asked was different than a white person or a white supremacist had to answer it, because it was really about that the whole idea is that there's scarcity of resources, and so white supremacists, for example, think that because there's resources are scarce, anything that keeps anybody other than them, from those resources is good. It's pretty simple.
Was the recent war in Iraq a white supremacist war? Was it planned and organized by the white supremacists?
Sure looks like it. Sure looks like it. That's exactly about resources, isn't it?
Can a Jew be a racist? A white supremacist?
They can be a racist. They can. I don't think they'd last long in the white supremacist circles. But
what does it mean to be Jew?
So I have a question similar to that as well, because earlier he said that he's a Jew. Ron said that he's a Jew, and Ron said that he's Jewish. But please address John's question first. But I do have a question along the same line.
So what does it mean to be? It means that I'm. Oh, that's interesting, because it means that I'm not white, right? With those guys that I was telling you about that were friends of mine, I thought I wasn't part of that group. I was definitely an outsider, and it's like an outsider. And in fact, when we talk about like resources and whether they're scarce or abundant, if they're scarce, they wanted those resources for themselves, and they weren't going to let me be part of that group that got those resources. This was around business.
Were those guys white supremacists? The guys you were in your dorm guys? Would you consider them white supremacists?
Yeah, now I would.
Based on what they said about...
Yeah, I would.
What does a white supremacist say that nobody else says?
That nobody else says. I don't know the answer to that.
You can give the example of what they said to you. You can give the example of what they said.
Thank you. Yeah, I could give the answer. What they said to me.
What they said to you. Didn't they say somebody tried to Jew them down or something?
Right.
Jew as a verb?
Yeah.
Is that something that a white supremacist would say?
Yeah. I think so.
My question around the term that is popularly used called Jew is I've often wondered I've often asked and wanted to know some clarity what a Jew is. I always believed that it was a religion. That's what I thought. And in my notion of Judaism, I always thought that to be Jew means to be just. That's what I thought. And so when you say that you can be a racist, that just, it doesn't make sense.
Well, all right. So
can you clarify for me what?
Yeah, I didn't say that I could be a racist. I said that Jews could be a racist.
You said that you are a potential white supremacist.
Yeah, well, no, I understand that in that. What's the document called? The Cresswell's-Inn document?
The code?
The code.
I think they're separate. But
yeah, the code. It's
like a code book of suggestions for non-white people who are maybe white supremacy.
To be empowered.
Like you have the code book for your electrical system that tells you what to do, what not to do, how to run the wires so you don't burn the house down. It's the same principle, only the things in the code book are more suggestions.
Is this like a book you can just read?
Yeah, it's on a website and you can read it.
The whole thing's not on the website.
Okay.
It's a book, though. Because what you find mostly for non-white people, black people in terms of reading, is statements about the whole pathology of being a black person, how bad it is, the problems, HIV and prison, but you never hear any suggestions about what to do about it, what to think, what to do. So that's kind of what the book is.
So are you guys coming from that, like with everything that we talk about here, is that the context that you're coming from?
That's the context the whole world operates in.
It's the way
no one actually says it.
I don't know that
it's like the rules of society, and this is like a way to actually empower non-white people in the society, right? I mean, that's what it's about. It's about empowerment.
What is your name again?
Melissa.
Melissa.
But to me, it sounds like it's a belief of. So whether you believe in it or not, you're saying like that's what it is.
Well, no, it's very cool.
I think I need to read it.
You
I
should
think
read
I'm lost.
Yeah, it would be good.
we've been talking about reading books about, and this is one of the books
That
I
was
want
one of
to read.
I think I need to read it, so
The way we hooked up with these guys was we were looking on the internet for people who had tried to tackle the problem of how do you, in reality, go to work on, in this case, what do you call white supremacy or racism or the colorblind or, whatever the heck you call it. Like, this was the only unified, completely thought out, self-consistent set of principles in kind of a, really a logical, scientific way that I found, where somebody was like going, okay, let's really get to work on this, and that's what had me go and listen. And it's deep. I mean, you listen to it and you go, I don't know if I agree with that, but when you hear what's the author's name?
Mr. Fuller?
Mr. Fuller. When you hear Mr. Fuller talk, he builds into the inquiry, like, questioning his own, like, he's going, please question this. Please examine, like...
So he questions his questions or his statements.
It's extremely...
It's how you refine the code. When a plane crashes and they're doing the investigation to figure out how did this happen so it doesn't happen again, you have a bunch of people sitting around the room and they say, could this be the problem? Well, I think so. Well, I don't. Well, why don't you think so? That's how you refine it until you solve the problem. And if you notice, most of the time with black people, it's a emotional type of revival and prayer type of situation. It doesn't go with logic. You look at this war on terrorism. Look at the way white people are addressing that. It's no vague language. They're talking about terrorism. They got a name for the practice. They have names of people. They got a deck of cards with pictures of non-white people who are terrorists. So it's not done the same way. It's like when I talk to white people, they can speak logically about any issue, and then when you get on racism, when you start talking about racism, logic goes up and they get all the emotion comes in. Sometimes I can't get people to even tell me if they are a white person. They'll start saying, "Why are you asking me?" Like I ask everybody that, and it's like they don't see how the problem of racism can be solved through logic the same way any other problem.
Well, when you say that to me, like when I'm like, you're white, I'm like, I don't know, I get all defensive. Like I don't even know what you're saying, but it's like already puts I feel like a barrier.
The barrier is already here. It's like people tell me I'm being divisive.
No, but
we're already divided into white people and non-white people. Whether you want to. Yeah, that's why we're here.
May I say?
Yeah, but I think it's a recurrence of yourself. Like, to me, I see people's color, but it doesn't like.
I sort of how you function.
But I sort of have, you know what I mean? Like when I come into a room and if there's, I view it in a different context, and I think I really need to like read or learn about this code so that I know like where things are coming from because I relate to it.
Would you rather we both just be Americans?
Well, for me, like you know what I mean? Like my vision is ending racism, which means that there is no.
That I can't talk about racism.
No, it's not that you can't talk about racism, but really that there are no definitions of like, not that there isn't color or stuff like that. But my vision of it, which I don't know that matters or makes a difference, but like for me, like my vision of it is that there's like barriers or whatever.
Would you rather we all just be Americans?
Would I rather we just all be Americans?
Because I would define what an American is. I think John had a point.
I was going to ask Melissa, earlier you began talking about people who, and I'm going to use my term because I don't remember exactly what you said, people who were not vested. In other words, they don't care because they're not, I think you were affected.
Yeah, it doesn't affect them.
Is it possible that you are one of those people? And secondly...
Okay, wait. Is it possible that I'm a person who isn't affected by racism?
By the practice of white supremacy.
I don't know what the practice of white supremacy is.
Let me follow up.
Yeah.
I think I can clarify
In terms,
one question.
go ahead.
Are you a nigger? Now, I'm sure you read the book. Are you?
I didn't read the whole. I didn't read the whole thing, but that seems like no, you're not. I mean, then that would be like another definition. I haven't read through the whole book, so I don't. Like, to me, like that. I would like off the cuff say no.
Well, that's what you should be honest. Just say what you know about yourself. If you're not a nigger and you haven't been referred to as a nigger and you don't think of yourself as a nigger, say you're not a nigger. Because it's very important for you to be clear with me.
Right.
Me, personally.
Yeah.
Because I'm a black person. I can be easily confused.
Yeah.
And white supremacy is based upon deception. It's based upon mistreatment. But the most virulent form of mistreatment that is used by white people all over the world is deception. And this is the reason why when I address the topic of racism, I have a lot of questions because I need to know what's going on.
Right.
When I go back to Southeast, I leave a world that you may not enter. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I see the stuff that you don't see. I see the stuff that drives me to have an opinion about racism, white supremacy that you may not have.
Right.
And so I'm vested because I'm black.
Right.
Okay? And there's no mystery to me about being black.
Right.
And my suspicion is that there's no mystery to a white person whether they're white. And there is no mystery to a person that is practicing white supremacy as to whether or not they practice white supremacy. Okay, there's no mystery to it in terms of, they might not use my terminology.
Right.
But there's too much violence going on in the world directed against non-white people for me to be able to sit back and say, well, maybe this is all coincidence. Maybe this is all a dream in a figment of my imagination. Because the race card has been dealt, and it's got all Arabs on it. I mean, I haven't seen the race card of all of the white brutality that goes on in the world. I haven't seen those cards. Why? Because who can deal the card? Nobody can deal the card like a white person can, particularly a white person who's practicing white supremacy. That is the most dangerous person on this planet and in the known universe, as far as I'm concerned. And so you may not see it, and it may not affect you, but it deeply affects me.
The only reason that racism affects a white person, like in their day-to-day life, if they're middle class and from the burbs, is if they make it affect their lives. Like, it only affects me because I stood up in front of room people and I said I'm going to be accountable for this, and now I got to deal with it, or I have to know myself as a liar. And I was coming home tonight knowing myself as a liar because I set up this meeting and then I flaked on it and I'm going, and I flaked on my wife and I flaked on. It's like, so it only becomes an issue for me because I've made it an issue, and it's I don't know. It's the core of injustice in our world. It's like you turn a blind eye to it, and who are you?
I got a question. Melissa, are you confused about whether you want to run for white person?
Well, I would say that I'm white, but the thing is, I think that you would maybe have a different definition than what my definition of white person is. Like, I have white skin, so I say that I'm white, but I don't. My understanding is maybe that means something else, and I don't know what you think that means.
Well, when I ask a white person if they're white, they tell me they have white skin. I say your teeth might be white, but your skin is. I'm looking at your skin, and it's not the color of that piece of paper. And so when a person says that they're white, are they talking about a physical description of color or a function?
I think of it as a physical description. Like, my skin is
Yeah, but if
light
you take out
color.
a box of crayons,
And compare it to this, it's
I mean,
not
just
the
that
same.
piece of paper, there is contrast between your skin and that piece of paper.
Right?
So I'm saying that, why do white people say that they're white when,
Because someone came up with that.
and
And then people believed in it. And then you go forward with it.
you think it has
It's
anything
just like
to do
any word.
with color? Having a color-based category for people, and you have this one category of non-color, and then all the other people on the planet have colors, such as Chinese people yellow, Indians red, people in Africa black, everyone else is some kind of color, and then there's this one category of non-color, kind of like a pool table.
If it isn't white of color, and then that's lack of color. Is that what you're
It's
defining with?
well, I'm
It's the
asking.
absence of color.
I have to ask white people this because I suspect that it has more to do with how a
Why
person functions. Because
Okay.
when they say that they're white, when one white person, I don't know if this happens, but if one white person says to another white person, I'm white, and the other person's like, yeah, there is a transfer of information that is not dependent
But
on.
I've never asked a white person if they're white.
I don't
To
think
me, that would
You don't have to.
never even occur to me to ask someone that. As it wouldn't occur for me to ask someone if they're black or like. That would just never
would
occur
you
in
need to
my
ask me if I'm
experience.
black?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't need to?
In my world, like how I function, like it just doesn't make a difference. It just doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like
Does
that-
it ever matter?
If it doesn't matter, then what? If color doesn't matter, why are we here?
Because how it occurs, and how it occurs to me is when I come into the room that I see people as opposed to having a barrier for, like the distinction of, I don't know, like people just occur to me as people.
Has it always been that way? That people always occur to you as people?
People
Like
can
when
look
I-
differently and still have a constructive relationship. It's just that in a system of white supremacy, there's a value placed on people based on their color. The person I live with, I share a house with a person who's white. He says he's a white person, and I'm not a white person. Yet every month we pay our bills.
Right.
We pay the phone bill and all this kind of thing. The fact that there's a difference between the way people look, it's not the issue. It's the value based on the color.
There's some meaning assigned to the color.
Yeah, there's
Like
an
a-
assignment. There's an assignment.
And this
what is-
defines the color.
It's not the black people.
But what is it? That's
We always find the color in our
I don't know that that's true.
see what's
Who
what's
is
Yeah.
black?
But see,
No,
that's...
no.
So it can't be the black people.
But Melissa,
But I
what
think
what
it's
is
from
what
the
is
individual.
what
The individual assigns the
Melissa?
color.
What is
Assign a meaning to that I'm white and that he's black.
what is offensive, at least to me,
Uh-huh.
is that the barriers that you're talking about
Uh-huh.
were brought by us. That is the black people in this room. We didn't bring the barriers to this room. The barriers have been in this world, and we have a perception about the barriers. We have a
Right.
perception about the barriers. You said when you
When
came
say-
into this
when
room,
you say we,
you said you
when
came
you
in.
say we have a perception about the barriers,
Yeah.
who are you collectively saying? We as in each one of us?
Each
or
one of us as individuals.
as individuals?
Yes.
Right.
We came into this room with a certain idea about the world.
Right.
And we're sitting in an environment where we're sharing ideas,
Right.
thoughts, sharing views with people who have a different perspective. You are one. Okay?
Right.
But what is offensive to me is the idea that we have brought a barrier. That is, each of us as individuals, the black people who came into this room and who are talking about white supremacy, is that we have brought that to either this room or to the world, when we're just talking about things that happen. We're just talking about our experience in the world. That's all. And the reason I say it's offensive is because this happens all the time. With me, whenever I get into a deep discussion, quote unquote deep discussion about
Right.
the world and how it works,
Right.
with white people,
Right.
the dance always starts. the dance always starts. And the dance has to do with not being upfront, not being direct, not
Are
being
you saying I'm not
truthful.
being upfront?
No, I didn't say
direct,
that.
and truthful?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. But what I'm asking and what
But you're saying with white people, okay, and I'm a white person,
yeah.
okay?
hmm
So then you're saying it to me.
I'm saying that whenever I interact with white people, I have the same problem. It's a dance. It's a dance. And we dance around the topic. We don't ever deal with the topic. We
So
dance around the
do
topic.
you want to ask me a question or be straight about something with me?
Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure if you're asking me a question or
No, you asked the question.
I asked you if you were a white person earlier,
Right.
and there was a hesitation in the answer. Then I asked you if you were confused about whether or not you are a white person.
Because
You kind of didn't want to answer the question.
no, because I already stated this because I feel like when you're saying, are you a white person, it's in regard to this definition from the code that you have about a white person, and I don't know what that definition is, so it's hard for me to answer it.
It's really
Well, you're
scary.
saying
It's
you're
really
saying
scary
you're a
to
white
answer these
person
questions.
and you don't know
Kids
what a
don't
white
have any
person is.
clue.
Because I'm saying, I don't know that
It's like a weird conversation for us.
if you put down white
I'm sorry.
person,
It's a
and you
weird
put your
conversation
definition
for
of
us.
what it
She
was,
just wanted to know
and I put
kind of
down
what the
white
distinction
person,
of white
person.
Wait,
because
Melissa.
you're coming from
Melissa,
the distinction
hold on a second.
of the code. I feel like when you ask me that, you're coming from the distinction of the code, and I don't know what that distinction is, so it's like, how could I even answer the
The
question?
code
That's why
definition of a white person is a nigger's definition. It's not a white person's definition. It's the best the non-white people can come up with based on our observations. And based on that,
my
a
head
white
like
person,
kidding.
a white
Like all the definitions and distinctions, like
Yeah.
just start making my head like.
I have a definition of a snake, but I would like to be able to have a conversation with a snake. That snake could tell me exactly what a snake is. I mean, I can observe all the things about a snake. But talking to a person that says they are one is the best way to get the definition. So you shouldn't be too concerned about the code definition of a white person when you're already a white person.
Well, I was asking you what context you were asking it in.
So the question is,
The context is, you're sitting here right here, and I ask you if you are a white person. You say, yeah. Then you say, your color. But when I look at your color, it's not the same as the color of the paper that you're writing on.
So then,
So I'm
what
wondering
are
if
you asking?
are you getting the answers you want? I mean, are you getting useful
I'm pulling
information?
teeth.
No, I think you are. But let me, because it's
I'm
the
getting
way
a
that.
function.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, because I've been doing these kind of meetings for about 6 years now, and it's like there's certain kinds of conversation when asked direct questions about racism, in my experience. Like, Melissa's reaction is the same as my reaction when you talked to me at the Cross-Wrestling Institute was the same as PJ's reaction in the last meeting, was the same as Nino's reaction in the last meeting. And I know you find that suspicious, but
I don't know. Like, I feel defensive because I feel like no matter, like, really what I'm for is, like, people, like, being united, not based on their color. And I feel like when I'm here, I feel like I'm constantly on the defensive because it's not about that, because it's coming from trying to figure out where people are, I guess, and it feels like it's nothing's getting furthered, and I'm getting frustrated. I don't know.
Can I?
Because it feels like I'm maybe
I think
in
one of the things that should have been stated at the outset, needs to be stated at the outset of every meeting, is that the closer we get to exactly what racism, white supremacy is, and how it works, white people will get defensive, and non-white people will get embarrassed.
Oh, wow.
And that's to be expected. But that's something that we have to deal with if we're going to solve this problem.
State that again?
The closer we get to exactly what racism, white supremacy is and how it works, white people will get defensive and non-white people will get embarrassed. Even embarrassed enough to jump to the defense of white people.
I've seen that happen too.
All the time. That's a part of the training that non-white people get under the system of racism and white supremacy. Now, if we're committed and dedicated to solving this problem, we're going to have to realize that is going to have to be our barometer.
Does anybody mind if I let the cat out?
Please.
Yes, let the cat out. Who lives here?
Yeah. I was wondering what that was.
Sorry, that's person color we keep in the basement.
And do you feel that since the subject that the black people keep bringing up is white supremacy, that you define yourself as a white person, that somehow indicts you? Because there are white people who do not practice white supremacy.
Yeah. Of course there are.
Right.
That's a behavior.
That's why I'm going into function. How you function as a white person as opposed to your skin color.
Okay.
Because believe it or not, there are black people that look like you, and I've met them.
Okay.
But they were not white people.
Because they didn't function as white people.
No, they didn't.
Right, and that's why I was asking you to define that.
To define what?
What you meant by white person.
I'm talking about a person who, you can write this down too. Number one, they classify themselves as a white person.
Okay.
Number two,
And do
they
you,
are classified as a white person by other people who classify themselves as a white person.
Yeah.
so they
number
classify themselves as a white person, and
Classify
others
themselves.
classify them.
Other white people.
Other people who classify themselves as white people classify themselves as white.
And
Okay.
the third one is they function as a white person in all areas of activity.
Okay. Now, I have a question though.
And I
Do you just normally ask people that?
I'm working at being able to do that. I've gotten a little bit at it.
I think it'd be a bizarre question. Like, if I didn't know you and I wasn't in this group, I would really think that was a strange question.
That is
I think it's a strange question.
in a system. Well, when did that become a strange question? Because there was a time when,
It was routine.
say during slavery, you had to know who the white people are, and who the light-skinned niggers were.
Yeah, but
Okay?
the thing
That was
is,
critical.
but we're here now. It's like today.
Well,
It is
that's this
still-
question, though. That's a really...
It is still critical in some circumstances.
Which is what John was saying.
I mean, well, we're here, we're discussing racism and white supremacy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pertinent information. And we were discussing effects. And everybody would be asking everybody else, well, what kind of effect do you have? Well, why is that pertinent information?
Let me ask you this:
If pertinent information.
have you ever?
I guess because how it occurs to me is that it's because to me it would be
You did
Yeah, they
that?
really are.
because to me how it would always occur is that it's obvious, so you wouldn't have to ask.
It's obvious.
Yes.
What's
Well, you just heard Nina.
Good question. That's a good question.
Right, but Nino said she was black.
I don't know that Nina said. Did Nina say she was black?
She went through a whole lot of stuff, so I'm trying to get it's not up. Let me ask you
No,
this.
yes, because to me it seems odd to me because to me it would seem obvious like you wouldn't even have to ask
Nino?
that I'm white. Would you say I was? I mean, what would you say if you saw me?
Yeah.
You don't know me. I'm walking down the street. What would you say?
It depends on where I saw you.
I
I've
guess,
been all over the country. There are places where it's black people who look like you. I've met them. I would ask you.
you would ask me.
Actually, I do ask people. I don't ask
I ask
you.
you.
You guys ask it. But
See, it's part of your training as a black person not
all
to
of
even ask any questions of a white person. You got to break out of that nigger mentality.
That's part of
and
what
just
Jamie
get-
was talking
Yes,
about.
just get used to asking white people because the whole thing is, who are you? Who is this nigger asking me questions? You know, it's like white people aren't used to that. That's the look I get when I ask white people that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
That,
it's so funny, like how you.
I don't know that you wouldn't look at a white person that way if they asked you that question. What the heck is
Yeah.
that? It's like a.
What if I asked you if you're black? Because I thought
People have asked me that. White
But
people
I-
have asked me, are you mixed? Is one of your parents
And-
white? I was at a Halloween
I
party.
know, and weren't you
I
offended?
got the picture right here. A white
Didn't you
person.
say that you were offended that someone asked you that?
John, what's your last name?
Well, I understand.
You
What's your
said
last name?
that you were
I'm sorry,
offended.
John. What's your last
I'm a
Ed what?
non-white person, so I'm used to white people asking
I'm quoting you,
questions.
that's fine.
But you seem like you were
nothing I say
offended
is
by that.
cool.
Really?
I'm offended that I got to function as a non-white person in the system of white supremacy. So there's big advantages to being a white person. See, I've lived around white people a lot, and I've watched them. And even though I can imitate them almost to a T, I can't function like them because other white people won't let me. And I'm not going to go into all the examples, but I'm just telling you, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I have a suggestion, because it's interesting. The training that we all did together, a lot of it's like you get trained in not knowing the answer. Like somebody asks you a question, and you actually get trained in not answering automatically, but actually examining the question before you answer it. So we're really, we have all these smart rat answers where we like are trying to, you know what I'm talking about? Like we're like, let me see what the right answer, and what you guys really want when you ask these sort of really direct questions is you want the direct, like what's there for us.
Authentic, straight answer.
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
But the problem is, like I don't really like.
There is no truth.
In my ideology, like in my idealized, in my idealized truth,
How I live
actually,
my
in my
life.
idealized truth, what I really believe is true is I think race is bullshit. I think it's a lie. I think it's a lie perpetrated by white people on people of color. I think it's a lie. So I don't like to perpetrate it by going, yes, I'm a white person, since I think it's a lie. I think it's a fiction. I think it's
made up.
It's made up and designed to not let you function as a white person and have my children be safer than yours.
Well, what's wrong with people classifying themselves?
Yes.
Right.
Everything is made
That's
up.
life.
If people classify themselves based on color,
Yep.
the problem is not the color.
No,
and the non-color, the problem is the value
Yes.
put on the different colors.
Yeah,
Yes.
one is better than the other.
Because there are certain situations, like I use the example of Americans. Should we just classify ourselves as Americans and not see color anymore? Should we do that? Because I say in a system of race, you can't have Americans. You can have black people, white people, and white supremacists. You can't have any Americans because what is
Why?
American?
Because you say so, though.
No, but say an American is a person that can't be a racist.
Let's look at it logically.
But you could be more than one of those because you have when I say American, how that refers to me is whether you were born in America or have American citizenship.
But it would still be, white Americans,
okay.
black Americans.
Right.
It's been 400 years. White Americans and black Americans. Will the real Americans please stand up?
So, how is it that you'd like it to be?
I think we should have a system of justice
What's that mean?
where people are guaranteed not to be mistreated based on color. Well, guaranteed not to be mistreated for any reason. But I'm saying that if you say that you're a white person, you can be a white person without practicing white supremacy. You can't be a black person and not be a victim of racism. But you can be a white person and not practice white supremacy. So when I ask you that question, I'm not getting on your case. I'm not trying to indict you or set you up or anything.
Okay, well that's how there's some reason.
But you have that's a common reaction that white people have when I ask them if they're a white person. All of a sudden they don't want to answer.
I've now watched you ask a lot of white people that, and it's almost everybody reacts that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I'm suspicious that you're not doing it. My suspicion was that you are trying to have that effect.
No, I got to practice. Being a black person, I got to practice looking a white person in the eye and asking if they're a white person.
Right.
Because I'm used to being a nigger.
And as a white person, I need to practice looking at you and saying, I'm a racist and I'm trying to be responsible for it. It's like, it's... Because it's really interesting, the whole white supremacy thing. I asked the question, if you're a white person and you are committed to not being a white supremacist, well, how should you behave at the institute? And the answer I was given was, I'm finding it tough to do. It's like, of course, never ever lie to a black person at the job? I'm like,
Ever. Anywhere.
ever, anywhere.
In the entire universe.
Fuck.
Yeah, but
I'm like,
He lies to white people and
I'm like,
himself all the time.
How am I going to do that?
But the person that needs the help
Right.
the most is the black person.
but I feel like every
Every-
person is coming from the place of victim. Is that what it is?
We can't discard. The interesting thing is it's dangerous to discard black and white right now because if you just got colorblind, then it's going to get worse. You know, it's like
You're not going to ever be able to do that in the system of white supremacy.
yeah, you got to break the system of racism. You got to be a major shift.
Not focusing on color is not going to solve the problem. Niggas been doing that for years. It don't work. It don't work. We have to deal with it.
You got to deal with it.
What is happening? Head on.
Yep.
And solve the problem. I hope that's what we're here for.
That's what I'm here for.
That's what we're here for.
Every
Okay.
may I say?
Are you
Every
going to answer my question?
I don't know what your
Okay.
question is.
Is it like when we say like black person, is that coming from, or at least with the kids, it's like the black person's a victim?
Yes. I mean, not a self inflicted victim,
Or
a
identified.
victim of white supremacy.
Okay,
There's a
victim of
difference.
white supremacy.
What I was going to say is
Right, I just wanted to clarify.
whenever you're talking about racism,
Uh-huh.
white supremacy, it's a foregone conclusion that when you have black people in the room and truth is being revealed, white people are going to get nervous. They're going to get very excited in that sense.
Right.
And black people are going to be very embarrassed. It's going to happen every single time. Whenever you get as you get closer and closer to the
So you're
truth.
embarrassed, like that's your
Well, the embarrassment is that I have to live like I do. Okay? In other words, every word that I speak is connected with the reality because my mind has seen the world for 44 years.
okay.
And what I'm bringing to the table, being in this room, is my experience. And so no one wants to see a big bloated-bellied black baby, which we know there are thousands of them, millions dying in Africa as we sit here and eat crumpets. Okay, no one wants to talk about that. But it is a truth. It is a reality. I would like to see what would happen on this earth if millions of white babies would be shown on television with bloated bellies and flies flying around them. I want to see that world. I want to see, in other words, I want to see something change. Okay, what the words that I bring to the table. Okay, I want to see a different reality. Okay, I want justice. I don't want to bring my embarrassing baggage into this room and share it necessarily. But I know that if I don't, what it tells you is how crippled I am. Because what I'm saying to you is heinous. And it is embarrassing to me to have to admit my frailty. Because I feel a certain powerlessness in the presence of white people. In my world every day, I have to go back to that. And if we came back here next week, I would have to say the same stuff. It's embarrassing to me. And when I'm saying words that might connect you with the fact that it's being perpetrated by a person that looks like you, and that you are a suspect to me.
So,
You're a suspect. I just met you. Okay? You're a suspect.
Okay.
As is all the white people in this room.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So what would it be like for you if you came here, if you could sit down, okay, and that I wasn't suspect to you?
What would it be like?
Yeah.
That's the unknown question.
Okay, thank you.
That is the unknown. That is why I came.
And where does change start?
Well, obviously the change starts with people. What people choose to do from moment to moment.
Each individual.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
it starts with us.
It does start with us. But what? Okay.
So I guess I'm asking, are you willing
Okay. I'm
to take
willing.
on
I'm
not
here.
being suspect of white people?
I'm the most patriotic person I know. Okay. I'm here on point and doing my duty. I want to end white supremacy as soon as possible. Okay.
I asked you
So
a
what?
question. I said, are you willing to come to this any situation not being suspect of white people?
I'm absolutely willing. In fact, I would like to stop suspecting white people today if they would stop killing people. If they would start, if they would stop going around the world propping up terrorists and taking their heads off and blowing them up, and then having the audacity to say, well, hey.
So my question is bigger than that. So in the face of all of that, are you willing to come to the table not being suspect of white people? In the face of that.
That is not intelligent.
I'm not asking you if it's intelligent. I'm just asking
That's not
you.
intelligent.
I'm just asking you if you'd be willing to do it. That's where the change starts.
No.
Melissa, he's telling
There's no
you
way.
what all black people pretty much think.
Not only that, but you yourself.
He's just telling you out
You
loud.
can't.
I know.
Wait a minute.
And my question is still
But
the same.
Melissa,
I'm being really serious.
Melissa,
Like-
you come to the table as soon as you bring your intellect out. The suspicion is already there, because without the suspicion, you never get to the truth. Now you have certain suspicions in this room right now, and you have certain suspicions when you go out into the world and try to fly your way to what you want to get. Okay?
Right.
Everyone does. It is the way that we move in the world. We suspect something will harm us, and we fend against it. Right? That's that. I spend too much of my energy
I know. That's
doing
why
that.
the question that I'm asking you is insane. In ending racism,
It is.
that's like insanity. Like,
It,
really.
racism is insane.
Ending racism is insanity?
But how
Racism is
do you know what I mean?
insanity.
Because, like, in order for, like, it to stop, he would literally have to come, like, not being suspect of white people.
Okay.
Doesn't that seem insane?
Well, what?
As long as it's white supremacy.
That he wouldn't. I know, but in the face of that. But I'm saying in the face of all of it, because the change starts with us. So
Turn up the
in
cheek.
the face of all this, like, ridiculous way that the world is, it's like it has to start with us. So we got to be willing to take the first step, because otherwise we're just going to say, well, there's this reason and that reason and that reason, and then it goes nowhere.
Okay, let me explain this. Under a system of racism, white supremacy, it is impossible for non-white people not to suspect that white people are racist. It's impossible.
Well, then it's impossible to end racism.
I don't know that that's true.
I mean, that's how it's
I
occurring.
think what's amazing is actually if
You have to assume that all guns are loaded.
That's what I tell children.
You have to suspect that all guns are loaded. Otherwise, you will become a victim of a gunshot wound.
And that's actually what they teach you when you learn to handle guns.
Don't point.
And they're all loaded.
You have
So
to
you know
suspect
otherwise.
that all snakes are poisonous.
Melissa, given that scenario, what is your metaphor for that?
What does that mean?
Like, if you're
I know what that is.
in Tombstone,
Huh?
if you're in Tombstone, Wild West, guns everywhere, everybody's carrying a gun.
Speak in English, please.
Well, no, I'm saying it's like
Okay.
it's
Like you're talking in like some kind of...
no. I'm saying it's like he's giving you the metaphor that you're in a hostile environment where people are carrying guns. The thing to do is to assume everything's loaded until you find that it's not.
Hey, Tara, did you call a cab?
I did.
I think there's no answer.
Oh,
That was quick.
that was quick. See?
It's the yellow.
Not a murder.
Okay.
Be really careful with the cats, please.
Finish your question.
Which is basically what would be.
What would it be like if...
How would you, if you ever, how do you approach the system with guns? If it is Thanks. I'll give you more.
I'd be scared shitless.
You can't ignore them.
But you would have to suspect that all guns are loaded.
See that?
I know, but
That's what you
that's where I think that the work needs to be done
But
for this.
but here's something really important to
Okay.
to point out about the situation, because I've been doing all this research and reading about this, and one of the things that's really interesting about human beings is that human beings are like incredibly sensitive to context, like much more than people think they are. People act like people are who they are, and they act the same way consistently. But actually, you put one person in one context and they'll behave one way, and you put them in you put them in another context and they'll behave a totally different way. And you can see that over and over again. But one of the things that people don't really talk about is like if you're
born white, then I like Joe's definition of, if you say you're white, and other people who say they're white say you're white, and you function as a white person, you're a white person. It's actually one of the clearest definitions I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're born and you function that way, you fundamentally live in a much less dangerous context than if you're born black.
Yes.
From every moment you're like, it's hard for us to imagine. It's impossible for me to imagine what it would be like to be black.
Is there water coming out of something?
I don't know.
No, it's probably just the condensation.
Yeah, I'll never know what it's like.
And the thing is, you guys came here and you're having this conversation in the face of that we are loaded guns to you. You know what I mean? Like that's
Not necessarily.
what do you mean?
That's what he was
Or you did.
Well, I have a suspicion, okay? And suspicion has levels of suspicion. I mean, the offense to me is that, if we're in this room and somebody stole something, and we're all suspects because we're here, don't put it on me because I say that you're a suspect. Put it on the person who stole it, who we don't even know.
Right.
That's the person we need to get to. And the only way to get to it is through brutal honesty.
Now, and God forbid that this should ever happen. I like to say that in preface, but if you were raped by a man and you didn't see who he was, who would be the rapist suspect?
I feel like
somebody who's done it before.
I feel like what you want me to say is a black person or something.
No.
Okay.
I want to
That's
question
okay.
what's
That's
on
what
your mind.
I don't know.
Answer the question, Melissa.
I don't know.
It's very simple.
Like, I don't even want to. Like, how it occurs to me is I don't even want to.
Would it be Nina?
I don't even want to.
Would it be Nina?
Oh no, I'm thinking.
It wouldn't be Nina.
It would be a man.
So now,
Not just a man, though, right?
It'd be a man. You rape me.
A man that's capable of raping you.
Okay.
Paraplegic.
Okay.
A man with a fully functioning penis.
Okay. Right.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Right.
Okay, not just any man.
Right.
So, what I'm saying,
Okay.
and I can't speak for anyone else, but what I'm saying is that the only white people that practice racism, white supremacy, are the only white people that can be suspected, logically speaking, of practicing racism, white supremacy, are white people that are able to practice racism, white supremacy. Those are the suspects.
So we're all able.
Yeah. So we're all able.
You said we again, but earlier you said you were a non-white.
Yeah,
But
I function as a white person most of the time.
Most of the time.
Right.
When do you not?
This is like an
But I think
right
the
now.
whole thing is I think if you're
well,
like,
look, I function.
able
No,
to,
actually,
I
when
think
I'm with
you're
white
not able
supremacists,
to.
because all of a sudden I'm not white anymore.
At a Nazi Klan rally, Ron.
Like even
At a group of it doesn't have to be a
So,
Nazi Klan.
what about
It could be
me?
a bunch of blue bloods that are all getting together and they find out that I'm Jewish.
Okay.
Okay, so how about me? What should I?
I'm suspect. I got it. I'm always going to
Okay,
be
so
suspect.
when you're with me, you're a white person.
Yeah.
But when you're with David Duke, you're a non-white person.
Right.
Because context.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Because context is decisive.
If white people started hanging niggas
Yeah.
right now,
Right.
when you get home,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I'm saying that.
Good test.
See,
I didn't like it. That's good. I didn't like that at all.
me as a dark-skinned person, I'm not confused about whether I'm white or not non-white. I always know what mode to be in. And I'm wondering what's going around in your mind when you gotta walk around and judge every given situation and make that. You must be pretty good at it.
But wait.
Yeah. I don't have to wonder about it. I'm always non-white. He just said that when he's around people like me, he's white. But when he's around
he's not white. He passes for white.
Right. Exactly.
These things never even.
Yeah.
Nobody passes.
You're right, but I'm going to say that I'm functionally white because I
until they start hanging.
As soon as exactly. And as soon
So
as
I'm saying, what's going on in your mind when you get up in the morning and you go to work and you're in the freeway traffic and you look to your right? Do you have to judge every given situation and wonder, is this a...
No, not every given situation, and that's the whole point.
Well, when does it become a situation that you have to judge?
When they start hanging people, when I'm in a situation where all of a sudden I hear,
that'd be very powerful.
like things said that are directly threatening to me.
So do you think that mentality had something to do with the number of Jews who were killed in Germany in World War II having that mentality?
Yeah, because they didn't get the hell out of the way fast enough,
Well, they were waiting for the hanging to start. And when it started, it was too late.
That's why I'm here.
Okay.
So there's no that.
That's why I'm here.
I see. I was just trying to
So that's why I'm here, because I'm not going to wait for the hanging.
This is very interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I missed that. I was having a sidebar conversation with.
So.
I'm clear about what he said.
I'm not going to wait for the hanging to start. That's why I'm here. Because I don't want to have to do what I didn't even really think to myself that I was doing, but I really got it when you guys started talking about, okay, so when are you white, when are you not white? I function as white most of the time. And then when I'm in a certain situation, I know I'm not.
And do you feel that
Jews
in Germany...
pass, basically.
Yeah, right. This is it,
But it doesn't work all the time.
No, it doesn't work all the time. As soon as somebody asks me, I'm committed to telling the truth about it. Now, in the hanging situation, I'm not going to tell the truth. I'm going to lie because I don't want to be hung.
So you're going to get as close to the blackest person you can find. That's what you're going to do.
To create contrast.
Exactly.
Right. Can you see the difference? Right.
Exactly.
I might do
What's
that.
interesting is
do that. That's scary. That's scary. Because actually, that's not for me. Because that's scary for scarier for you. Right. But that's not the way that I want to operate. I want to operate by being here so that we don't have to have that conversation. I want to operate so that I don't have to do that, or my kids don't have to do that, and your kids don't have to do it either. And the way I look at it is that we could actually start the conversation here that makes when is the hanging going to start? That makes that impossible. And that's what my goal would be, is to make it impossible. Not that it would ever be impossible, I think, if we let our guard down. Like, I think that we always will have to be vigilant about it. And that saying that it's impossible, like actually waking up one day and believing that that's impossible, is just as dangerous as finding a gun and not knowing whether it's loaded or not, and putting it to your head and pulling the trigger.
So, do you believe that's what happened in Germany in the 30s, where the Jewish people waited too long?
Yeah, I mean, my family didn't. You know what I mean? My family didn't.
Didn't what?
Wait too long.
You got out.
They're here.
Okay, but I'm asking you,
Yes. Yeah. They believed it couldn't happen in a civilized society.
No, but I'm asking you, do you think that they thought that, well, we're white, and if they start hanging non-white people, we'll point at the gypsies?
No, that's not what
they thought.
No, they thought even worse. Because, that's an assumption that you made. That I'll stand next to a black person and say that I'm white in comparison.
Would that
I don't know that I would do that. I don't know if it would work, but I do know that I wouldn't wait till the hanging started. That when they start saying, well, I first have to identify myself as a Jew, right? I have to go around letting everybody know it.
And you can't pass.
And I can't pass. Or I can't do anything that I don't really practice the religion, so I can't say that I do that. But if I couldn't do that, and I did practice the religion, I would see that as a threat.
Do you think you could? It would
That's
help
a good
you.
point, though.
Do you think it would help you to function as a white person by practicing racism?
No.
You don't think it would?
You mean, would it help me be more white?
Would it help you be
Survive.
accepted by other white people that you're a white person?
Let me paint a picture on that.
Okay.
The scenario I brought up earlier.
Standing next to somebody who's darker than I, blacker than I.
When somebody is out there to hang the natives, would you pick up a rope and put it around a person that is darker
No.
than you? Knowing that.
No, I know
that
me, I wouldn't do it. Would I?
Knowing that you might get hung?
No, I wouldn't do it anyway. I wouldn't do it anyway. But I'm going to tell you that I would also be suspect that other people like me, other Jews, I would not be so sure that they wouldn't do that.
See, here's what happens with guys. A lot of times, they'll beat up a homosexual because they don't want guys to think that they're homosexual. You know, let's go beat up the faggots because we hate faggots. So,
yeah, it's the typical Marine thing, right? They go beat them up, and then when it gets dark out, they go.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying, to prove that you're not a homosexual, you go beat some up.
Right.
That's what some guys do to
prove that they're not.
To deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do white people do the same thing as far as when it comes to racism?
You can't answer that question.
When you're
He can't answer that.
well, he said sometimes he functions as white.
He says he's not a white person. How is he qualified to answer that question?
Earlier, you all was the discussion was on Russia, and Nina looked at you and said you would not be characterized as
black.
As black.
She said I'd be white, right?
And so that's
what I mean by functionally white.
Well, the question that I would have is the decision to be classified, quote unquote, as a Jew would have to be your own. In other words, I don't have a choice.
Well, no, I think it's more complicated than that. I think I have a choice in as much as I don't admit it.
But I mean, from your physical appearance,
right?
Would a person identify you as a person called Jew or Jewish?
I don't know that they would here, but I bet Nina knows that Ron's Jewish. She's got an incredible. She's like, they're very. I mean, from my point of view, they're very interesting.
No, actually, she didn't. She called me like a white Russian. She said that I was white.
She was probably being polite.
Okay. No, she said Melissa was black.
But that's the black conversation, because the whole black thing in Russia, it's also relatively new. It's like an invention. They've invented this new thing there. They've reinvented it. But
I don't know if it's that.
That's blowing me away.
Because
no.
See, part of it is because there's a she may, I think she might be able to explain it better in Russian or her language.
Yeah.
But when she uses the term "черный" and it means black.
Yeah.
And then says that the term black has nothing to do with color. That just goes right out the window for me, because for me it's like black.
But this is really like you guys. You asked this question before, so you can. I said 2 generations ago I would have been black, and now I'm white, and I function as white. And people, by your definition, what you talked about, I declare myself. Other people who declare themselves declare me. Mm-hmm. Boom, I'm white. But that wasn't always so. People really recently. I mean, this was like why we got this conversation at the beginning. It's like if you read the articles, this is a new languaged phenomenon in Moscow that didn't exist when the wall came down. People didn't go around calling each other black. Now there's it's a particular group of right-wingers have now declared the Chechens and the Georgians and this group of people who look like Melissa black. Now I think it's intentional. I think it's actually they are
intentional that they would change that.
Right.
They're like intentionally trying to make these people.
Are they doing what was done here?
Here's the thing. Did the phenomenon exist prior to that?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the virus.
Yeah.
The virus got there. You know what I'm saying?
No,
it was dormant. I mean, it was like
people invented it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we invented it. It's been invented, and we all, whether we want to believe it or not, we all play a part in perpetuating it.
Okay.
Unless we're purposely doing something to not perpetuate it.
My question is, what's the payoff for white people
Great
to
question.
end racism, white supremacy?
It's
What's the payoff?
It's really interesting. I was in a meeting today, and we're talking about this digital divide program, and there's this black guy who works in digital divide issues. So when he went and talked to IBM, he said to them, we could do these training programs where these inner city kids would come in and learn a trade and learn computers, and they'd be really good for them. And then they'd be at work during the day, and that way they can't steal your stuff at night. And everybody laughed nervously.
Who said that? A white guy or a
No, it was a black guy.
Was he serious?
No, he was being humorous.
Okay.
He was being humorous to make a point with these IBM guys.
Okay.
To get them to see that they had a stake in making a difference.
Yeah.
One.
Now, why do you think he did that?
I think he did it to break through this not affect the white illusion that this doesn't really affect me, and I can't do any. It doesn't affect me. I can't really do anything about it. I'm not at cause.
I say that because black people will often make a joke or some kind of humorous statement to make up for what they really want to say.
Wow.
He can't go in there and say, you need to teach black people computers so we can end white supremacy.
Right.
So instead,
He might not even know to say that.
Part of being a nigger is when you even walk around white people, you get out of that mindset. And that's why you hear the stupid statements come from black people, because they can't say what they want to say.
Right.
See, you don't see black people when it's all black people around. Once you come around, it's like you have an effect. The whole Heisenberg and certain things.
Right,
you have an effect on it.
Right.
When it's all black people around, they say things that they won't say in front of white people.
And sometimes
And I assume that white people say things in front of other white people and they don't say it in front of black people, which is why I had to ask you the question if you're a white person. Because when they're telling the nigger jokes in the lunchroom or wherever, when I walk in, it's going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just that. It's when the promotions are coming down, what you need to do to get your stuff on time. That kind of information.
Mm-hmm.
That also sometimes stops. Right. The reason I know is because white people told me about it.
Yeah, showing up at a car lot without the price of the car on the window. How do you know if you're getting overcharged? Mm-hmm. It's all kinds of things.
White people have told me about things. So that's what I mean by function. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're practicing racism. I'm talking about when you walk in the room.
There's something about the way that you ask it, though.
Is it too direct? Should I make a joke first?
No. But
should I be more niggerly?
Exactly.
No, it's not about that. I just feel like I don't know how to say this any more direct. And I'll put my thing in it. You won't take. It's like you don't take responsibility for it.
Or
how it lands.
How it lands.
For when I ask you if you're a white person.
Yes.
Okay. If I
see, I really.
How about this? Here's a better thing.
Like,
if I went to your house, if I went to your parents' house with you, and you introduced me as your new boyfriend, would your mom have that look on her face? Would your parents see?
No, they would have a problem if I were on my
What I'm saying is that if
my parents
you're
wouldn't
not
have
a white person, then I would know how to prepare myself.
They wouldn't have a problem with you. They'd have a problem with Ron.
Why?
I don't know. My mom has this weird thing about
Jews
Jewish.
are evil?
Yeah, she has this thing about Jewish men. My mother actually, made this statement. I don't even know why I'm saying this, but I was dating someone Jewish, and how it occurs to her was, I'd rather see her dating a black person than someone Jewish.
And my sister's white husband said, when her daughter brought home a drug dealer, a white drug dealer, and my sister's white husband said, I'd even rather she date a black man. What is really being said?
What is what?
Well, what's really being said?
Yeah,
What would be
Your mom
you
said,
realize?
I'd rather you date.
Are you asking me what I think my mom meant by that?
Think about it. Your mom is
I mean,
actually saying, I'd rather you date a gorilla or a cockroach than a Jew. When she says that statement about she picks something worse than a Jew to say, I'd rather you be with that than a Jew.
Yeah.
That sounds like what she was saying. Am I wrong?
I get what you're saying.
It's a reasonable interpretation.
Yeah.
It's speculation with her mom not here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
But see, that would be one of
And
the
I don't
reasons
even
why I
think
would
the
want to
thing is-
ask you if you're a white person, because if you're
And
going to your parents,
no. Okay, right.
I would
but
have to know.
The context is, he's saying is every white person that you've asked this to, it's caused this upset, and see the work that we do, that we met, it's really about coming from the aspect or point of view, which is completely made up.
It would be very powerful for you to be able to ask the question in a way that gets you the truth instead of evasion.
I'm asking it straight. I ain't got much time.
Well, there's a difference.
You're not.
There's a
You
difference
haven't been
between.
able to do it yet.
Yeah, there's a difference between straight and being responsible for how somebody who's listening to you.
Oh, hold on.
No, listen.
Hold on.
Why
Listen,
is it such
we
an
are
offensive
victims
question?
Actually, yeah.
in a system of racism, white supremacy.
All right, I got
Let
that
me
perspective.
finish asking this question. Are you asking me
Yeah.
to consider how someone else feels that may not be a victim
Yeah.
in order to get the truth?
Absolutely. So that's a straight answer. Absolutely.
I don't know if you want
If you want the truth, if that's your purpose, then
I
yeah.
have another question.
Yeah.
I asked you if you were a white person.
Yeah.
Did you feel any different when he asked you if you were a white person?
Yeah, there's something about him that really... You irritated me the first time that I met you. Yeah, I don't know. There's just
You get too much.
something-
You have too much glee in it.
I've,
You know what I mean?
I've had
It's
people
part
tell
of the
me
movie.
in the workplace. I've had people to tell me, John, you should smile more. White people, you should smile more. I've had people tell me
I said that to somebody today
that I'm too serious.
Somebody told me that today.
In the context of being uncomfortable with the presence. Okay, we talked a little earlier about intellect and how suspicion follows the intellect, because as soon as you start thinking, it shines a light on a situation, and you come up with a suspicion that you want to find the conclusion of. And so, all I'm saying is that, as a victim of racism, I need to have my intellectual lights on in whatever situation I'm engaged in with black people and with white people. More so with black people than with white people, because of the severity of the victimization. I'm more likely to get shot by a black person in the street than by one of you. But I am more likely to have less money in my bank account because of one of you. Or I'm likely to live in the worst part of the neighborhood or worst part of the world because of a person like you. But in terms of direct violence, the threat, the immediate threat, is with black people or non-white people as a result of victimization. This is the way I would characterize it.
Okay. But Ed asked that question. Am I asking that he be responsible for how it learns, how something lands to me, or what my feelings would be?
No, I asked you, are you asking me to consider?
Yeah, to consider my feelings, right. And what I'm saying is, if what it is that you're after is the truth, or is somebody's authentic response, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
That you need that the only way to get somebody's authentic response is to, I would rather that you not be suspicious of me. That if you came to me and you said, look, I'm going to not for the moment, for 15 minutes, I'm not going to be suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what it is that, I want to know, and you'll tell me what it is that I want to know, right? If we could actually do that, if we could sit in a room and have that happen, there would be more truth and more authenticity in 15 minutes than there probably would be in, an hour or two of us sitting here. And I'm not saying that I wasn't authentic with what I said, but it took something for me to do that. And it took something for me to do that because I know the premise that the code is built on is that non-whites are the victims. And if we're coming from being a victim, then we have no power in being able to do anything or change anything in our world.
That is not correct. That is
But
not.
I'd
What are you talking about?
I'd like to state first of all,
Not that you're a victim.
the only reason that any vague code exists for victims of racism, white supremacy, the only reason that may or may not exist is because racism, white supremacy exists.
I got that. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I understand why you would adopt that perspective, and I understand.
Focus on any kind of victim code. Because what we need to get away from is having a racist code.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm here to address.
Okay.
What is that? How it works? How do we eliminate it?
So then you can't rely on that you're a victim, and how can I ask you as a victim anything to consider, whether it's to consider my feelings or anything else?
Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
You may or may not have information about how to help someone that's been snake bitten.
Okay.
And someone right next to you gets snake bitten.
Right.
And they're screaming at you.
Right.
Asking you for the information.
Right.
Literally screaming at you. Will you turn to that person and say, well,
You need to ask.
don't holler at me.
Oh, like.
I want to say don't holler at me because, you're really making me feel, will you really do that?
No, I'd help them. But you know what? Yeah, so I'd help them. And the thing is that.
How should I ask the question?
No, it's not how you should ask
Should I change expression on my face? Should I?
Oh, come on! I'm not asking that. I'm not saying you should smile or you should tell a joke.
How should I ask it?
Okay.
Or should I not ask it?
What is really behind? Like, can you be really straight about what's behind you asking it?
Racism,
I'm
white
trying to ask
supremacy
it because
is
some white people cloak themselves in other titles.
And it seems like you're coming from the viewpoint of you cloak yourself as another title and
And guess what? It's going to get more and more complicated because more and more non-white people are coming into the world looking like white people, and you're going to have to start asking people.
I have a suggestion.
I have to ask people.
Because I actually...
How should I ask?
I just think it's a sad way to live a life.
I have a suggestion for how you should ask.
I don't know.
Because I have the same problem. I ask people, I can piss people off in a second with the kind of questions I ask. And so what I do to be responsible for that, I ask incredibly intrusive questions from their point of view.
What are you trying to find out?
I say, I'd like to ask you an intrusive question. Do you mind? And then if they say yes, then I say, are you white, or are you black, or are you whatever the intrusive question is. So I get permission, and I find that makes a big difference.
Okay. I'm confused because I thought that's what this was. I thought this was a place where we could be frank and discuss racism. In my discussions with white people, I do not always speak in the manner that I speak right now for the very reason that you're saying.
Right.
I try to be polite. I try to be extraordinarily polite in my general behavior towards people in general. And I do find myself in some circumstances being more polite with white people in a casual conversation, because I have found, like you have just said, by evidence, and black people, I would say, I'm gonna step out on a limb here for a minute and say that black people, particularly black people who live in this part of the world, have extraordinary capability in doing exactly what you said, presenting a front, presenting a smiling face, presenting the appearance of being happy. We do it well. One thing.
Can I stop you for a second?
Go
Would that
ahead.
be okay?
Yeah, if I can continue. Sure.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I think there's a misunderstanding here, and that is that I was saying you have to be happy or smiling or anything like that,
Okay.
and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is actually being responsible, just like you've been doing. Look, I'm going to say that I think you've been responsible, and actually, and you too, Ed. And I'm going to say what I think, what my opinion is of what Melissa finds a little bit irresponsible about the way you do it, Josh. And it's like, and I'm saying this, and it could be totally untrue, right? But I want to tell it to you straight, and that is that you get glee out of seeing people squirm sometimes, and it's obvious, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's like, it puts people off. And if you could not be so gleeful about it, and I'm not saying hide your true feelings, but I'm saying if you could actually do it without the glee, it would make me feel more comfortable and me feel like I could tell you anything you wanted to know.
Or you could even be responsible for that. It makes you gleeful. I'm going to ask you this question. If it makes you squirm, it's going to make me really gleeful.
Right, and then be gleeful about it, and I'll say, damn, he's doing it again.
Then I'm just a gleeful nigger.
I know, but that's
That's
but,
what
but
you
that's
call
what
yourself.
but that's yeah.
Not what we
Look,
do.
What's that book say?
well,
I don't care what the book says. I just don't
but
care.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you should be gleeful. Just the opposite. I'm not saying that you should be gleeful or you shouldn't be gleeful. What I'm saying is, when you see somebody squirm, you're getting enjoyment out of it.
You know that most black people are afraid to ask white people that question?
I'm certain of that.
Why is that?
I'm certain of it. I am certain of that, and I'm also certain that I wouldn't even think to ask a black person, "Are you a black person?"
You can see that.
I could see that, and I wouldn't have before this, not this discussion, but the first time we had that discussion, I wouldn't have thought of asking a white person if they were white, and I explained to you what I explained happened to me when I was in college. So I didn't even know, it didn't even occur to me to do that, but I knew that I was different. You know what I mean?
But when they start hanging people, you're going to start asking.
When they start hanging people.
But you don't want to wait till it's too late.
See, white people are not confused about who's white.
Yeah, I got that.
So white people don't have to ask. White people decide who's white and who's not.
That's right.
They don't have to ask who it is.
That's very
Because they don't have that confusion. Non-white people, we have that confusion. We don't even know
I also want to be good.
what a white person is to a white person.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
See?
Because I'm not a white person to a really white person, to a white supremacist,
You
right?
have to ask, are you a white person? Especially, come on, folks.
But these things don't matter.
In a discussion about racism, white supremacy.
No, there's not. I'm not saying there's. Look, I'm not saying
I
there's
don't know why
anything wrong
we're
with it.
discussing
How
whether
about
or not
if I
we should
ask
ask
you-
about
No, we're not.
No, we're not discussing. We're actually not discussing that.
Okay, great.
Because I've been asked that by
I don't
15
understand
people since I started coming to Cross. Every person I talk to at the Crosswell Institute asks me that. But I also don't want to like Josh's contribution to these meetings has been, he's been keeping these things going and making them much more direct and interactive. And we don't want to. It's like, but we've seen it enough that it's like it would work for you to get that competency. Or if you don't, it's not like we want to silence that. And then the other thing I want to say is, maybe we could all. John, right? John said, this is a place where we can be direct. That's why I'm committed to this being a space for that. So I don't want to squash you,
Well, how would you feel if I asked you if you're a lesbian? Would you be offended by that?
No, I wouldn't. But
The reason I won't ask you that is because we don't live in a lesbian supremacy society.
okay.
And that whether or not you're a lesbian doesn't really affect me, my day-to-day life.
And that is why other white people probably aren't involved in something like this, because then it doesn't affect their everyday life. But it's still an issue out there, like lesbianism and people. But the really what the point is with what you're saying, like, I want you to consider, even though it may seem so absurd, like literally, like take a moment to think about it. Do you actually get some like kind of like, his word was glee out of seeing people squirm when you ask that question?
Okay, I will go so far as to say it gives me confidence to finally see white people scratching their head, wondering what a black person is up to.
Yep.
Because I watch white people do this constantly.
Yep.
Okay.
Go say some words to some black person, ask some questions, the black person like,
Can we?
Okay.
But that's
I
not
wanna
my
interrupt
issue.
the
It's really to understand what a white person is.
Well, then
I
I'm
don't
taking
wanna-
that neither.
I don't want to disrupt the conversation, but can we get back to the racist code and get off that, Nick?
Yeah.
I appreciate
We didn't let Ed finish what he wanted to say.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's our job.
John.
And we said we would.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes.
Well,
You're it, John.
I mean, I lost what I was going to say. I guess for me, the bottom line is, I feel really disappointed. I mean, the hospitality is good, you know, but you know, for all intents and purposes, we're talking about a huge problem, a juggernaut of a problem that I take deadly serious. And you're asking me to consider your feelings, and I mean, I can consider your feelings as a human being, as an individual, but in light of what we're talking about, I don't put it high on my list. I mean, I just don't. Not in this discussion. Now, if we were talking about horse racing, or if we were talking about the Knicks or something like that, or talking about something else, I mean, yeah. But I thought we were concentrating on the world's biggest problem here. That may not be your opinion.
So,
but it is mine.
I get that.
Yeah.
And I also get that I'm here because I think the way you do, and I think that it's possible to also to consider other people's feelings, whether they are. I mean, because if anybody's here, they're not. I would say that they're probably not white supremacists, first of all, and that's just an opinion. But I would also say that if what we want is truth, and that's what I said, right? If what we want is to find the truth, if what we want to do is actually make a difference, then we in this room have to be considerate, and maybe the skill of being considerate like that. And I don't know that. Look, I don't know that I'm not really great at it myself. But if I could go out and I could ask questions in a way that never rankled anybody, and so that they would just give me the answer, like really be straight with me, wouldn't that be a skill that would be useful and valuable? Wouldn't that be something that would be worthwhile, especially in a discussion like this that's so important and so charged?
are we back on the topic of ending racism and dealing with white supremacy, or are we still avoiding it?
I don't know. One of the things that I see white people do periodically, in a discussion on racism and white supremacy, is get the non-white people to focus on other non-white people.
Yeah.
I see that a lot, all the time. And Josh was the subject this time, as well as other non-white people.
It can also.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose focus.
No, I appreciate that. I thought that was very powerful to bring that subject back.
We're here to
what we're here
address
for.
That's my understanding. I could be incorrect.
No, you're totally correct. And the other thing is that it happens, like when we did this first group, one of the guys that was the co-leader had done all this group facilitation stuff, and he was always pointing out these times when the discussion would get strayed, and sometimes it would be, like you said, the non-white people talking about one of the non-white people, and sometimes it would be everybody getting mad at one of the white people. There's all sorts of different dynamic things that can take you off task. I think it's very powerful to deal with it. Tara Cormont, who is not here, we work in the same building, so sometimes we get together and talk about this stuff. And we made an email decision recently to
start having these meetings around a book conversation, and he took me aside and called me on it, and he was like, this is supposed to be, we should be working on the plan to end racism.
Right, instead of focusing on the book. Okay.
And he was like, I just think that's off. You're just avoiding the subject again. And we actually promised each other that we'd be in communication with everybody over the email list. And then it's not the big surprise to me that we were both late tonight. Because we're both wanting to deal with that. So he requested that we go to work on a plan, and start in 2020 and figure out what would have to happen to end racism and white supremacy by then. And I've been doing so. We're getting to the end of the evening, but next time we get together,